So obviously you get the eggs and then they're implanted with the sperm, then you get the embryos, and then you have to wait for day 5 or 6 to get the blastocysts. One of the cycles I didn't get any, and the blastocysts have to be of a certain quality. I didn't get any good quality blastocysts. And sometimes you don't get the egg count. There's so much. Every cycle, it's like, and you're waiting for that phone call. And I think I remember I was actually in Portugal doing the Portugal Masters, and my mum and dad were over, and we were out for dinner at this lovely restaurant, amazing food and a few glasses of champagne, and getting the call that they hadn't fertilized. And it's just like kick in the stomach. And it's like, and also, I mean, I think when I look at the cost as well, I mean, between me and my partner, probably over the years, because my partner went through a couple of cycles as well, we spent well over 50 grand on fertility.
Wow.
Yeah, and probably more. You got the drugs, you've got the treatment. It's just, it's horrendous.
Welcome to season 2 of Fairways and Feelings, the podcast where we take a step off the course and into the lives of the people who shape the game of golf. I'm Danny, and each episode I sit down with someone from the world of golf to talk about everything that happens off the course. The thoughts, the feelings, the messy middle bits. And for our first episode of season 2, we are joined by Sarah Stirk. She's a broadcaster, presenter, one of the voices that has guided us through countless Sundays on Sky Sports here in the UK. But what interested me about Sarah was not necessarily her job title, it was everything around it. It was the years of IVF that she went through, the emotional toll of doing that on her own, and raising her son as a single mother. We also get into identity and the moment that she came out publicly. She talks about the relief of finally sharing something she'd carried quietly for a long time. It's honest and sharp, and she tells it in the way only she can. Now, before we dive in, I just wanted to take 30 seconds to give you an update on what we've been working on. This podcast is brought to you by Florio Golf, a non-profit that focuses on mental health in the golf world. And we've just launched Healthy Minds Golf Club, which is an online platform that helps golfers like you and me get better at handling life's ups and downs. God knows we all face them. You'll find stories from real golfers, such as Marco Penge, Stuart Appleby, Christina Kim, but also everyday golfers. And then you'll also find practical tips, tools, and resources that you can use to get better at dealing with stuff that, life throws at you. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link to Healthy Minds Golf Club in the description down below. Go ahead and check it out. It's completely free. And we've also got lots of exciting stories and other announcements coming out very soon. So don't forget to follow Florio Golf on Instagram. All right, let's get into it. Here's Sarah. Well, I always love to start out just by asking a very simple question. How are you doing today? But on a scale of 1 to 10, and why?
So I'm quite good today because I had a good night's sleep. We've just been saying, I've got a little boy who's 4 in January, and he's been waking up in the night. So I actually had a night at my mum and dad's last night. So I got the full quota of must be nearly 9 hours. So I'm feeling better today. But yeah, no, good. I'm doing well. Not loving winter. I wish we could turn back the clocks and go to April, May. I'm a real summer person. I do struggle in the winter, not going to lie. And I think it's almost got harder since having my little boy as well. I think it just was, I'm so outdoorsy and sport, and he's very outdoorsy. And the winter's a struggle for me, but doing what I can to kind of keep mentally okay and positive as I can.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I'm exactly the same way. Now it's end of October, isn't it? And the clocks just went back last week as well. And it's just, for me, it's the darkness as well.
Yes.
That it gets dark so early. It's just,
it's horrible.
Quite depressing. If you had to give it a number, 1 to 10, how are you feeling today?
I'm going to go for 8 today.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 8. If you'd have asked me yesterday, I think it was a 4.
Oh, okay.
But today I'm going to go for an 8.
And the 4 is fully on the sleep side of things?
Yeah, I think the
Or
sleep and winter. I've also
yeah.
just I'm my own worst enemy. I've got a lot on. I've always got a lot on. I think I'm that type of personality. I'm always juggling about 5 different projects, 5 different. I don't know. I've got a little bit of property which I do, and I've got a couple of different work projects, and obviously my little boy, and I've always got too
Mm,
much on, so I'm always juggling a lot. So I had quite a lot of stuff come up yesterday. So um, yeah, I think if I could, one piece of advice I could give myself is just try and maybe simplify my life little bit more and try and cut down on what I do. But
mhm.
that's also goes against my personality and everything that I kind of stand for as well. So it's really hard. I think I'm constantly fighting with myself. I'm kind of that. I have that very entrepreneurial mindset, and I have different projects and different interests, and it's very hard to switch that off. But when you've got a little one and different priorities, and you need to look after your own self and mental health, it's sometimes you just need to kind of step back and just do a little bit less.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's I'm quite similar in that way, that I have always liked to have millions of projects, but it's finding that
Yeah.
balance, I think, like you said, with not uh, I guess burning yourself out.
Yeah.
And I think priorities also shift, right? Like you said, and would love to jump into that. So you have a son,
Yes.
and how did your so you talk about kind of priorities and all your projects. How did that change when he was born?
Yeah, massively. I think, I've always been very ambitious. I've always worked really hard, all through, I guess, 20s and 30s. Like, priority was, yeah, it kind of was work. I was kind of climbing the ladder and doing all the TV stuff. And obviously, it's a very tough industry, and you need to
Mm,
work hard, and you need to, stay ahead of the game. I also had a
yeah.
business, exclusive golf, a golf sort of travel concierge company, which I was building. I
Okay.
actually went on to sell that to Golf Breaks, because I just kind of couldn't do both. It was when kind of the Sky stuff was taking off. So work's always
Hmm.
been massively important. And as I said, I think I'm built that way, quite very entrepreneurial and ideas and creative and all that type of stuff. And and then I had him. Motherhood, kind of, I wanted to become a mum, I wanted to have kids, but it was more kind of for me later on, like sort of late 30s. And then personal circumstances, had quite a bad breakup, and ended up
Hmm.
having to do it on my own. Went through quite a lot of IVF, in my 3 rounds of IVF in my late 30s, and then just personal situation, kind of recovering from the breakup and just getting myself back mentally to be in a better position. It wasn't sort of till my early 40s that I went down the process and went through the implantation. And then so the journey from kind of the IVF to having him was a number of years, and it was really challenging. It was obviously you're dealing with all that mental stuff of breakups, which are very hard, never easy. And then obviously the IVF. The IVF. I mean, we could talk for 2 hours on IVF, and the brutality of it. It was horrific.
Mm,
And I would, and I know friends who've gone through it, going through it. People, connecting with people on social media, etc. It's a horrible thing, and you don't realize how difficult it is till you're through it. And it's the mental impact. Physical impact is brutal, but the mental impact is really hard. And I don't think there's enough support in this country for people going through it. But anyway, so did that, and then obviously was really lucky. The first implantation, Milo came about, and it was brilliant. So after that long journey, once I sort of went for it and went for the implantation, yeah, he came. He was the first embryo, and it worked straight away, which was amazing. But yeah, I think then also I was in a position. COVID changed things a lot for me. I remember
mm,
it was 2020, wasn't it? I was on in a taxi, and I tell this story, and it's one of those, you have moments in your life that kind of, I think my memory's terrible. So I'm very kind of short-term memory. My long-term memory is quite poor. I think it's just the way my mind works. But I remember sitting in the back of this taxi on the way I lived in Oxfordshire at the time, and I was in a taxi on the way to Gatwick, I think, for the players so it'd be March, wouldn't it? So March 2020, the COVID, is that
yeah.
right? 20, yeah. And And I remember
think
looking,
so,
and
yeah.
obviously, yeah. And bearing in mind, I've been at Sky 14, 15 years now. And obviously back in the day with all
Yeah.
the PJ Tour and traveling, I was doing a lot of traveling on the DP World Tour and the PJ Tour. And I had done for a number of years. And I adore my job and I was loving the traveling, but the traveling wasn't easy in the end. And I think
No.
certainly because I was thinking more about, babies and all that sort of stuff. And I remember being in the back of this taxi thinking, I'm really excited about going. I love the players, but I was I didn't really want to be away from home again. I was a bit homesick. Obviously,
Mm.
the relationship well, obviously I'd broken up. We'd broken up by that point. It's like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And ironically, then COVID hit, and I meant the traveling, not the sky, not the sky stuff. Obviously, but I just the traveling element of it. And then COVID hit, and then we didn't travel for like 2 years. And then during that
Yeah.
time, I was okay. So that relief. So obviously, we're still doing all the studio stuff. So COVID kind of was a really good thing for me. I think it meant that I could be at home more and be a bit more settled. Still do the Sky. We did some in our living rooms at the time, and then obviously in studio.
Mhm.
But then it gave me the chance really to kind of do the pregnancy thing, and then obviously I had Milo, and then I just think I was saying this to my mum the other day. I think I probably enjoy work now more than I ever have because I have a
Oh, really?
different. Yeah, it's weird. I love Sky's a brilliant company to work for. I love the people I work with. I love my job. I love obviously passionate about golf. I love talking about it. It's the best job in the world. But I think because I've got a different perspective, I'm not kind of driving and trying to climb that ladder. I kind of feel like I've been there and I've done it. And I've had a great career and I still
Mm.
have got a great career, but I have a sense of peace that means that I'm not kind of striving. I'm just enjoying it, which has been really interesting for me. And obviously I have different priorities now because I have my little boy. So it's a really nice position to be in. And I still struggle. There's things that I still want to achieve. And as I said, other projects that I'm working on and stuff. But in terms of my Sky job, I love it. I love the people. I love everything about it. But I have a different sense of peace now. And also, I've been really lucky. My situation has been well. They've looked after me at Sky. I've had the ability to not travel. I don't want to be on the plane all the time and jetting off around the world. I just
Yeah.
don't want to be away. So but obviously I still do a lot in studio and there's still a need for that. So that's it's worked really well, but my priorities definitely have changed. But now it's about still balancing that entrepreneurial mindset and career woman that I am with being a mum. And that's the eternal juggle that every mum and dad will talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for sharing that. And that's that last point is, yeah, hit the nail on the head, I think. It's something that I think about a lot as well.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack there.
I
I
know. Yeah.
think,
Sorry.
no, I absolutely loved it. I just didn't want to interrupt. I was like, I'm going to let you go. You
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And thanks for sharing all of that. I think you mentioned obviously IVF and
Yeah.
the journey that you went through of that. And it's such an incredible journey, I think, and one that's so interesting and unique. And obviously, something that you mentioned there is that you don't feel like there's enough support or kind of
Mhm.
enough perhaps voices out there speaking about kind of the struggles or the mental toll that it takes on you.
Yeah.
Um, what what are your thoughts around that? So, in terms of like the mental toll it actually takes on you, um, as, as someone that has no experience in
Mm.
this area, what what light could you shine on that?
I just think I think for me, there's so much more. I think when we're looking at, menopause, fertility, there's so much more in the public domain. And I think that's one of the pros of social media. I have a bit of a love-hate with social media, but I think that's one of the,
Mm,
I've sought counsel from a few people and I've seen accounts and I've got advice and I've reached out to people and they've reached out to me. I mean, I've always been I think when I was younger, inherently I am a private person, and I think that's why I've always struggled a little bit with social media. But as I've got older, and I think, I've talked very openly now about IVF, about some of my sexuality, and I feel very open now, and I think, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I think that's when you're very comfortable in your own skin. But when I was younger, I really struggled with a lot of things, and I just kept everything to myself. But so on the IVF point, I just think it's such a numbers game. You look at the statistics to have to go down that route, and obviously in the position I was in, I had to go down that route. There was it's just a numbers game, and the numbers aren't great. And you're putting your body through a lot. You're pumping yourself with hormones. I mean, I went through 3 rounds. I actually froze to freeze the embryos because I wasn't ready to implant at that point. So pretty much 3 rounds back to back. 1 round, I remember not getting any. So obviously you get the eggs, and then um, they're implanted with the sperm, then you get the embryos, and then you have to wait for day 5 or 6 to get the blastocysts. And one of the cycles I didn't get any, and the blastocysts have to be of a certain quality. I didn't get any good quality blastocysts. And sometimes you don't get the egg count. There's so much, and every cycle it's like, and you're waiting for that phone call. And I think I remember I was actually in Portugal doing the Portugal Masters, and my mum and dad were over, and we're out for dinner at this lovely restaurant, amazing food and a few glasses of champagne, and getting the call that they hadn't fertilized, and it's just like kick in the stomach. And it's like and also, I mean, I think when I look at the cost as well, I mean, between me and my partner, probably over the years, because my partner went through a couple of cycles as well, we spent well over 50 grand on fertility.
Wow.
Yeah, and probably more. You got the drugs, you've got the treatment. It's just it's horrendous. And I think, and then when it doesn't work, fortunately it didn't work for my partner, so that's that I felt the loss and the grief of that, which took me a long time to get over that. And then I was doing it for myself, and obviously there was a lot of guilt associated with that as well. Um and then you're doing it, and so it's a numbers game, it's sort of stats game. But also I think I didn't find these clinics, obviously it's a money making thing, they're businesses at the end of the day. And I just felt like you're just a number. You go in and you're one of however many patients they're seeing that day, and they don't care about your situation. They don't know what you're going through. They don't know your history. Well, obviously they get to know, but I just found, and maybe I was expecting too much, I kind of wanted a bit more bedside manner, I guess, just a bit more
Okay.
nurturing and care. And I actually found an amazing, I went to another clinic, and there was an amazing doctor, and I just wanted that kind of human touch. I think when it eventually worked, when I went for the implantation and went for the scans, and she gave me a hug, and she's like, when it worked, when we had the scan, and congratulations. And it was the first time I kind of really felt like she was invested in my journey, and it was amazing. And prior to that, I just felt like you are just a number, and I found it pretty soul destroying. So I think, and you just have to rely on the people around you and family and friends, but nobody really knows what you're going through. It was a tough time.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's just a very, like you said, a numbers game, but very clinical, right? Very medical
Yes.
experience, rather than what you would actually hope for, which is more of a welcoming kind of human touch.
Yeah, and look, it
And
is a medical. It's a wonderfully amazing medical procedure, which
yeah,
gives you the opportunity to become a mum if you're struggling, and all the rest of it. But yeah, that human element, I think a lot of clinics could do better at that.
yeah, and you said, obviously, well, I kind of get the idea that you're quite driven, quite organized, even, and for something that's kind of completely out of your control, I can, like you said, and waiting for these phone calls, it must be,
Yeah,
yeah, must have been nerve wracking. I understand that.
I'm a control freak. So it's like, and I've always, when I was younger, it's like, if you work hard and if you want something, it will happen. And then as you get older, it's like, no, you can work hard and you
No.
can want it as much as you want, but life sometimes has other plans. And I'm quite spiritual as well. So I I kind of believe in fate and what's meant to be, but it's hard. It's hard just to keep that faith, and it's hard to keep doing what you do. It's hard to keep pushing your body through that. But I've
Yeah.
got an amazing little boy now, and he's my little IVF miracle. And I look at him and think, God, how did I get so lucky for it to have worked? And I mean, it's bloody hard, don't get me wrong. It's the best and the hardest thing you will ever do, as you well know, being a dad. But
Yes.
he's a bit of a miracle baby for me.
That's amazing. Little Milo.
Yeah, little
And
Milo, little legend.
but you mentioned obviously the challenges around being a mum, and
Mm.
I believe obviously the first couple of years, so Milo's almost 4 now. First couple of years, you were a single mother as well,
Yeah,
which I find obviously can be probably quite empowering, but also challenging. So completely bad example, but I this week, so I'm a stay-at-home dad, and this week my wife's been in the US traveling for the week,
oh
so I've been
God.
home alone with them all week, and today's the last day. She's literally getting back in about an hour, and I'm counting down the minutes
Yeah,
because it's been
yeah,
a long week.
yeah.
So I obviously understand the challenges a little bit, but how did you kind of find the balance between being, Sarah the parent and Sarah the, professional, the broadcaster, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think having him a bit later in life as well, all I've kind of known is my own life, my own career, and it's always been very important to me. I played tennis to quite a high level when I was younger, so I've always kind of
Mhm.
had that driven mentality. I've always worked hard. I've always kind of strived towards something, and then when tennis didn't work out for me, unfortunately due to injury, um, I went to play tennis in the States, didn't work out. Then I came back to Loughborough. Sport's always been a massive part of my life, and that kind of driven focus, that kind of athlete mentality is quite selfish. Um, and then obviously
Mhm.
I figured out pretty early after my tennis career kind of went south that I wanted to be in the media, and
Mhm.
wanted to be at the kind of the coal face, wanted to be at the cutting edge, wanted to be at the forefront, wanted to be have that front row seat. So the media stuff was then from like 18, 19, I knew what I wanted to do. And then I think that's been my drive. I'm quite hyper focused. I also think I've learned later in life that I'm also ADHD, which I know a lot of women, certainly as they've got a bit older, kind of, and I guess motherhood maybe has unmasked it a little bit as well, and hormonal changes, etc. I think, but that hyper focus on my career has helped. I think there's a ton of positives
Mhm.
about sort of that neurodiversity ADHD, but I it has been a balance, because I feel, and I'm quite open about this. I say to friends, and I know a lot of my friends feel the same. And I know you talked about being a stay-at-home dad. I couldn't be a stay-at-home mum. Like, I need that other stimulus.
Mhm.
It's just the way I work. And yes, my priorities should have changed with work, and I've had to massively cut back on the travel. I don't feel, as I said, I don't have that same drive for the job in terms of strive. I love what I do and I'm passionate about it, but I'm not like, right, I want to do this. I want to do this. I'm a bit more content in what I do, but I'm also,
Mhm.
I've got other projects. I host my own podcast with Anton de Beek. I host a podcast
Mhm.
with PGA. I've got quite a bit of investment in property. I do a lot of that stuff. I invest in a couple of companies.
Yeah.
I've just got a lot. I've just got a lot on. Like I always have. And I I want to write a book. I've got a proposal that I'm working on for that.
Oh
So
wow.
I don't stop. I can't. Like, that's how I'm built. And
Mhm.
then some days I'm like, right, I just don't want to do anything today. I just want to sit on the sofa and chill because I'm knackered. Um, and then, you've got this little human that takes up so much of your time and energy. So the balance is really, really hard. And it's trying to be like, when I'm with him, I try and be fully present. But I also know, when I go down, I live in Yorkshire. So I
Mhm.
moved up. It's my hometown. It's where I'm from. I love being back here. I moved back up just before Milo was born because I've obviously got family support and I've got a really good network around here. And and I also kind of just with the breakup and everything, I kind of wanted to get away from where I was. So as a life change, it's been brilliant. But it means that when I go to Sky, I'm away for the weekend. But my contract is Sky. We're all on different numbers. I mean, I obviously you have a set number of tournaments that you work. So I typically, and obviously I do a few OBs like the Open and Women's Open and British Masters or whatever. I'm not really overseas that much. Occasionally I am, but I I drive down and I'm at Sky for the weekend. But I actually really like it because when I go down, I'm kind of like, right, that's me in work mode. I can focus on Sky. A lot of my
Mm.
friends still live down there. I can catch up with people. I can play paddle tennis and it's really nice, and it kind of gives me that breather, and it gives me a bit of a chance to be me. And I think that's what I think with motherhood is like, you just have to do or parenthood, what works for you. Like, how are you built? What works for you? And own that, and don't be like, I'm I'm happy to say, like, I couldn't be a full-time mum. I just couldn't. Like, I need
Mm.
that other stimulus. So be comfortable in saying what works for you, and yeah, own it, say it, and don't be afraid to do that, because the juggle is bloody hard. Being a parent is the
Mm.
hardest thing you will do, and then I'm trying to do it with all the other stuff as well, and it's not easy.
No, it's and as you said, right, it's owning it. There's no right or
Yeah,
wrong. Like
yeah,
my wife actually says exactly the same thing. She says that she could not be a stay-at-home mum. It would just
no,
drive her bonkers, I think. And it's so important, I think, to find other stimuli. Like
yeah,
you obviously have a lot of other things you're working on. Um, and it's something I've struggled with. I've gone days without speaking to an adult,
no, I
and all of
know,
a
and
sudden it's
yeah,
like, oh, it kind of drives you a little bit mad
it does,
sometimes. So it's yeah, go ahead.
but I would say on that, like, I know the challenges now, in my 40s, having the hormonal changes, the career, the mum life. Like, there's a lot happening in this decade, and it's like you've got to look after yourself, and it's like, that's not
Mm,
selfish. I know when I'm really struggling. Like, if I don't exercise, I'm a nightmare. So I'm like, I need to go for a swim or go and play paddle, and that makes me feel better, and that makes me a better mum. Like, that's I can't
yeah,
just be, yeah, at home for days on end, not having any time for yourself. But actually, but it makes me a far better mum. And I come back and I play paddle or go for a swim, then I come back to him and I'm like, there, I'm much better. And he sees the better version of me. If I'm stressed or
yeah,
anxious or frustrated or going a bit stir crazy, like, they pick up on that. Like, and
yeah,
it's that quality time is really important.
definitely. And I couldn't agree more with that. I think it's something that I've tried to be focused on as well, is kind of the self-care side of things,
Mm,
is
yeah.
actually focusing on yourself as well. And
Yes.
being, it's not even being selfish, it's just
No, it's
looking
not being
after yourself
selfish. Yeah.
so you could be your best self for the people around you, the people you love, right? So for you, like you said, it's, you know, uh, paddle. What else would you say you do kind of away from you? Obviously, I know sports a big part of your life, but do you have
Yeah.
any other little things that you do? Because I think there's a little bit of like a misconception, I feel like, around when you hear self-care. I think a lot of people automatically assume it means you're sat, with scented candles, meditating, which it can be, but I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many different versions of what self-care can look like. And so I'm always intrigued to hear what that looks like for others.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind a scented candle. So
No, no, that's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with it.
yeah, no, I
I have
know.
them as well. Yeah.
I think for me, self-care is, I think it's time out. I think, as I said,
Mm.
I feel probably as well with, and I'm kind of going through the process with this, with the ADHD, I think it's become a thing because, and I also think I get very overwhelmed quite easily now. And I think that's my age, and also being a mum. Like, you need time out. Sometimes, and I say it. quite a bit. I like, sometimes I just want to go and sit in a dark room, and it's like a dark room without any stimulus, without anything, where I can just literally just breathe and just be. And I don't really go and sit in a dark room. I will go and do, but I do take myself off. I mean, like, so sport for me is the big thing. I've got really into swimming this year. There's an outdoor pool near where I live in Helmsley, an outdoor Lido. And honestly, it was because I had a few health issues this year. I had an operation in August. Not serious, and it's all fine, but I've had a few health issues this year, and it makes you think, and that's another reason why I really want to focus on self-care. So for me, the swimming side of things, like outdoor swimming, saunas, I've got really into, again, just having time to sit there and breathe and just relax. um Paddle is massive for me. I've actually just joined a women's football club near where I live, which is bizarre. I've never
Really?
played football in my life, never played football in my life, apart from kicking a little ball with Milo in the garden. I really want him to try and get into it. But yeah, just to meet, just a social thing. Obviously, we've seen the rise in women's sport and football in this country. Really nice thing
Yep.
to do. So I've just joined that. So it kind of revolves around sport. But I guess the other thing for me, I'm big on, I do quite like a spa day. So I like massage, like we all do carry a lot of tension. I'll go for facials and massages quite regularly, and that is, again, not being, might seem a bit, la-di-da or whatever, but that kind of it.
No.
I find it very hard to relax, and yet having a back massage and actually having that tension kind of eased out of me, I have no choice but to relax. So that kind of thing, really. Then just catching up with friends, dinner, lunches, the usual stuff, really.
Yeah. That's a great list, and it all
Yeah.
resonates with me as well. Back massage is actually number one on my list. I actually had one this Tuesday. Actually, I
Oh,
have one the Tuesday
nice.
morning because
Yeah.
my son was at nursery, and so I thought I need
Perfect.
that, and it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
going and it's
Yeah.
time to decompress. But you
Yes.
mentioned sports, obviously, socializing. There's so many different things, and it looks different for everyone. And
Yes.
there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I think you seem very self-aware of yourself, and when you're going to reach kind of your limits, and that's would you say that you kind of understand, when you need a
Yeah.
bit of a break to
It,
reset a little bit?
yeah. And I think it's not at the minute my son has been waking up in the night, and I feel quite broken at the minute. Like I feel, it's hard. The parenting it's incredible, but it's relentless, isn't it? As you well know, it's like every
Mm,
day this, I think for me, the mental load as well. I didn't probably realize that kind of, there's always something to worry about. There's always, and whether it's just like the day-to-day stuff, what's he gonna have for dinner, what have I got enough, woolly socks in, it's getting cold now, are his thermals okay, are his lips a bit
mm,
dry, what I need to, the the kind of day-to-day stuff. But then also the his we had a few issues with his behavior earlier this year, and I was a bit worried about his
yes.
speech, so I had to get speech and language in. And then it's like, oh my god, what is there, something, is there a problem? And so that's been really hard this year as well. And the speech is perfect now, and they signed him off, and then his behavior went a bit weird,
Right.
and then he was playing up at nursery, and I was thinking, god, is that, and sometimes when I'm away he's a bit naughty at nursery, and I'm like, oh, then the guilt kicks in, and
Mm.
it's never ending, and it's like that mental load. You're like, oh my god, it's you can't switch off from it.
No, it's definitely it's your own mental load plus then that
Yeah.
of trying to keep another human alive and walking
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
But something I really or like really take advantage of, I've been trying to take advantage of more, is kind of support circles and network around me.
Yeah.
You did touch upon that earlier as well, that obviously you moved back up north to be closer to, you
Yes.
mentioned support circles. Would you say that you now still do have a good kind of network around you
Yeah,
that you can lean on?
I do. I've got an amazing, my parents have been amazing. I've got an amazing, I'm in a very fortunate position. I do have a nanny who, I need to lean on with work stuff, and she's incredible. And, yeah, I just think you know, and then obviously friends and family and, you know, support groups, even just, you know, local clubs or groups that we've been to, because it can be quite lonely, I think, motherhood as well. I think it can,
Mm.
you're sort of, you're in your own head and your own thoughts a lot. And then there's also that comparison as well. You're looking on social media. Oh my God, you know, that little boy's doing that. Milo's not doing that yet. Or
Mm.
is there something wrong with him? Or so that's been challenging. I think now that he's a bit older and his speech is, you know, flying with his speech, that he can communicate more, and it's sort of like you've got your little mate alongside you, which is lovely. And he can, like the other day, he he'd had a bad night. I don't know what it is. It's just a little regression or whatever. He's been an amazing sleeper, but he's been waking up in the night, and then in the morning,
Mm.
I was exhausted. Then he woke up properly for the day at like 6:45, and of course they spring out of bed, and it's like, "Hi, I'm awake," you know. And
Yeah.
then I ended up sitting. I just was laying down on the spare bed, and he came in. He came in for a cuddle and whatever. And I said, "Mummy's just gonna." Like, I'm right here. Just you play a little bit. Mummy's just gonna, and I obviously can't go to sleep because I can't, but I just wanted to rest. And I just said,
Mm.
Mummy's a bit tired. And he's like, why is Mummy tired? And I was like, because Milo was up in the night. And he's like, why was Milo up in the night? I said, I don't know why Milo was up in the night. And then he was playing for a little bit. And then he just goes, Mummy, do you want a cup of tea? Because the other day he
Ah,
wanted to make me a cup of tea. And obviously he can't, you know, he's 3, but he's got his little tower in the kitchen, and he gets, you know, he can get his cups, and
yeah.
he's becoming really self-sufficient. And I was like, oh, Milo, that'd be lovely. I'd loved it if he could have just made me a cup of tea. So yeah, it's I said, I can't wait for that day, Milo, when I can let you safely make me a cup of tea. But thank you for the thought in the meantime.
It's very sweet, though, isn't it? It's
Very
good
sweet. Yeah.
intention, well
Yeah.
intentioned, and it won't be long. It'll be soon enough, I
No,
think, that he'll
it
be able
won't be
to
long. Yeah,
help with
it
that.
won't be long. And then I think I said my head hurt, and he
Yeah.
came over and stroked my head. So he's quite empathic for. I'm surprised at
Ah.
how empathic he is for a 3-year-old. Actually, he's a sweetheart.
Another topic that I found really interesting because it had such a big impact, I think, and was quite big in the golf world. You know, a world that's quite traditional and quite
Mm,
rigid still is when you shared about 5 years ago, I think, something deeply personal with the world when you came out
mm.
publicly. Um, what what made you feel ready to kind of share that part of your life with the world?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think I've always been a really private person. I've always,
Mm.
and I think maybe for a long time, you know, in my early 20s, I think, you know, and a lot of people will maybe resonate with this. I think it was never that clear cut. I was confused. I think is the best
Mm.
way to, you know. I was with my ex-boyfriend, who's still a very good friend of mine, for a while, and you know, I don't think it's not like you know, people say, "Oh yeah, well, I knew when I was like 8 or 10 or whatever." Like I didn't, and I think it's, you know, sexuality. I think it's very fluid, and
Mhm.
so I think there was some confusion about that, and I think that also then obviously that was very confusing internally for me. So I think I wasn't sure, there wasn't that clarity in my own head. And then I also think, yeah, I think just naturally quite a reserved person in terms of that private stuff. As I said, now, I honestly, like, it's like you asking me talking now, I'm so open about it. And I do not care. Like, it's just, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing to be able to, and I look back and I wish I could tell my 25-year-old self, like, just to again own it and be comfortable and be happy, and it does not matter. But I think a lot of that is, you know, society's very different now. You know, the last
Yeah.
10 years it's changed monumentally, and I think we're very accepting and open, and it's so commonplace now, you know, sexuality being so fluid, and you know, and it's just not a big deal. Whereas in my when
Mm.
I was in 25, it was. And I also think as well, yeah, I was really focused on my career. I was in a very, you know, when I was starting out, there weren't that many females in. the industry, and it was a different time to how it is now. So very male dominated, and I've always felt like, I wanted to do my job and be who I was, and do the job to the best of my ability, but not I didn't want to be a label. I wanted to be known as good and professional and whatever. I didn't want that label attached to me, so I was always just very internalized with it, and I didn't kind of, didn't really tell people. And then obviously that led to, I think, some issues, and that's very hard to keep something like that to yourself. And obviously then my family and friends knew for ages, but and I guess probably people at work did know, or, well, they will have done, suspected or whatever, but it just took me. And then eventually, then obviously I told people, and everybody kind of knew. But it wasn't like, look, I work in golf. It's a niche sport. It's not like I was a household name or anything like that. It's not like I needed to share it. But then I just got the opportunity to do a couple of these articles. So it wasn't like at that point when I sort of publicly came out. I mean, everybody kind of knew it. Everyone knew anyway, because I told them, and everyone at work knew, and like everybody knew. But I didn't kind of share it out there in a kind of magazine capacity or interview. And that's when I did the attitude piece, and I did a piece for the Daily Mail, I think, when Milo was born, and it was it was a bit of therapy as well, like talking now. I mean, getting you asking me questions, I'm so open and happy to share and talk, but it's quite therapeutic. And I think at the time with the attitude stuff, it was quite therapeutic just to do that, and the response was great, and it was nice to do, and it was nice to share. And I also, I wish, not wish, because I don't regret anything. Life plays out how it plays out, but I wish maybe I'd have been more comfortable earlier in my career, because I think it caused me a lot of internal angst unnecessarily.
But you mentioned obviously that I guess back then when you first joined or began your career in the broadcasting world, that the world looked a little different, didn't it? It's obviously changed dramatically over the past decade or so.
Massively, yeah.
Also a very male-dominated area,
Yeah.
but I believe obviously in sports, you started at MUTV, Manchester United
Yes.
TV, which very male-dominated, and then even the golf world, I think, is obviously dramatically is improving. It's still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But and that's why, you said it absolutely right. It's not a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal,
No.
right? But I think in, a sport like golf, and that's why I wanted to touch upon it, which is still traditionally quite conservative in nature, I think, quite male dominated as well. I think there's still a little bit of stigma attached to it, even, and that's why it's I think it's so important what you did do, even though, like you said, you didn't do some big grand thing, which you didn't need, but you obviously said that people responded to it. How did kind of people respond? Did they respond positively mainly? Was there anything that you remember? Yeah.
No, yeah, really positively. I still think, and that's why I think I don't share a lot of my personal. I mean, I do share Milo, but I don't share a lot of my personal life on social media, because I still think you get all the keyboard warriors, and you get the homophobic comments or whatever. And I just think, but that's life. You're always going to get that. But I think generally, because society has changed so much, and I do think golf, first and foremost, yes, it may have still some conservative values and a little bit of stigma attached, but it's a very welcoming, friendly sport. It's a small world. We all know each other. So the response was great, but I also think as well, it was like, well, as I said, I was out. I've been out for a long time anyway. It was just I hadn't done anything kind of in the public domain, so it was no kind of big deal at all. But yeah, the response was really good, and I think I was probably conscious of it as well, because I knew that. I'm trying to think when I did that. I think I was going through the process, so I knew that I was going to hopefully be pregnant soon, or I don't think, or was I might have even been pregnant at the time. I know I did a shoot in Fabulous magazine when I was pregnant, which was amazing with my little bump. Yeah. And so I think so obviously I think that was a big part of it as well, knowing that the kind of pregnancy journey and my story, and obviously
Mm,
going through IVF and doing it when I was single at the time. I had to go through. I used donor sperm from a Danish sperm bank, and so that kind of story was all. So it was kind of all linked to that, really, because I had to be, I was obviously going to be off on mat leave for a year, and like it was sort of
yeah,
getting that side of it out as well. So it kind of all just came together, really. But yeah, the
yeah,
response was brilliant.
yeah. Amazing. Sarah, I've absolutely loved this. I've got two little final questions that I always like to finish on. I know we're a little short on
Yeah,
time, so I'll jump
yeah, it's all right.
straight into those. Um, if you had to embroider a message on your golf bag, what would it say?
Um, I think a
Like a
quote that
mantra or message?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I love a quote. I love a mantra. I think I've always tried to do this, and maybe sometimes over the last sort of few years when things have been quite tough, obviously with all the fertility stuff, and then even now just with a little bit with mental health and juggling a lot. I think the one the quote that I've always kind of tried to live by is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. So I've always been massive in terms of
Mm,
attitude. We all have, no one goes through life unscathed. We all have good, we all have bad. And, but it, you can't avoid the bad. So stuff is going to happen to you, but it's how you react to it and how that attitude plays out is so important. And I think maybe, yeah, the last few years, sometimes with those difficult times, I've probably forgotten that positivity a little bit, and I think maybe got a bit down, or my attitude hasn't been good, and I'm really trying to focus on, and again that comes with sport and whatever, really try and focus on that attitude, because it's so true. Whatever happens, you have a choice how you react to it, and attitude is so important.
I think, yeah, as you just said, I think that's so important, and I love the way you phrased that as well. That everyone has something happen in their
Mm.
life, right? Everyone's got a story, and you're absolutely right. Right? It's there's no way of avoiding that. It's actually how you come out on the other end, right? And how you actually
Yeah,
rebuild after that, or improve yourself after
yeah,
whatever's happened in your life. I think that's very
yeah,
powerful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Final question then. When people look back on your story, whether it's your career, your journey as a mother, or anything else that you do, the millions of different projects that you're
Yeah.
balancing, what's one thing that you kind of hope that people remember most about you? What would you like your story to say?
Oh, that's a good question. So maybe I think maybe just that, not kind of not not bothering, not being affected by what people think. And I think maybe just the
Mm,
learning of, I think with work, and I've always been like super kind of focused and driven, and like that's what I want to do, that's what I'm going to do. But then in my personal life, it's probably taken me a lot longer to get there. So I think just, yeah, just own who you are and what you want, and don't be, and it's really easy to say that, saying that to your 25-year-old self at the time when you're going through it. It's easy to say, oh yeah, just be comfortable, be happy, it's fine. When you're in it, you don't
mm,
think like that. So I think it'd just be that, just be, I look at a couple of points in my, I don't think that whole sexuality journey and then the fertility journey, it's been hard. It's been really hard. And but you come through it, and maybe that, just to be comfortable who you are, and be proud, and celebrate that, and
yeah,
don't let the kind of internal dialogue, that negative internal dialogue, affect you. Just, really reach out to those around you who can help and support and love, and just be really comfortable in your own skin.
yeah. I think that's
Does that work?
powerful. It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that You've mentioned or you've spoken a lot there about things that I think hopefully a lot of people will be able to resonate with in some way, shape, form, or another. So thank you so much for being so open,
No worries.
about
It's like a
things.
therapy session.
I've heard that before. But but no, I do really appreciate it. I know it's not always easy talking about these kind of things, especially with a stranger. So it
No,
means a
it's
lot
you.
for
No,
me
of
and for
course
the
you
people
made.
listening as well.
Yeah, you made it very easy, and I think hopefully, and I always say, the fertility journey or the sexual anything in my career that if you can share anything and it helps one person, then that's a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate
No,
it.
no worries. Nice to chat to you.